The grand chamber of the Galactic Council floated in the void between stars, a massive station where hundreds of alien species gathered to decide the fate of worlds. Today, Admiral Menu stood before them, his uniform crisp and proud, representing Earth and all of humanity. It had been 15 years since humanity first made contact with alien life. 15 years since Earth learned it was not alone in the universe. The discovery had changed everything. Humans had joined the Galactic Council as junior members, eager to learn and grow among the stars. Minu looked at the faces around him. Some were familiar, some were strange beyond imagination. The Empire, with their 6 arms and crystalline eyes, sat to his left. The Collective, tall and pale with skin like polished stone, occupied the central platform. Dozens of other species filled the remaining seats. Beside Minu stood Ambassador, a brilliant diplomat who had spent years building relationships with other species. She had worked tirelessly for this moment. Today, humanity would finally be recognized as equals. Today, they would gain full membership in the Council. "The vote will now commence," announced the Council's speaker, a floating being of pure energy. "Humanity has proven itself worthy. They have contributed to our shared knowledge. They have honored our treaties. The proposal is to grant Earth full membership rights." Smiled, Minu allowed himself a moment of pride. Behind him, Captain watched from the observation deck where other human officers waited. This was their moment. The representative rose first. "We support humanity's elevation. They have shown remarkable adaptability and creativity." Other voices joined in agreement. The chamber filled with sounds of approval from a dozen different species. Everything was going according to plan. Then the ambassador stood. His name was, and his voice carried across the chamber like ice cracking. "We also support this proposal," he said smoothly. "In fact, we have prepared a special ceremony to celebrate this historic occasion." Minu felt something wrong in his gut. The way smiled was not right. But before he could speak, the doors of the chamber sealed shut with a heavy clang. "What is happening?" demanded. Alarms began to scream. Through the massive windows, Minu saw ships appearing from nowhere. Hundreds of warships, all bearing markings. But not just. 3 other species had joined them, their fleets forming a deadly wall around the Council station. "I am sorry," said, though he did not sound sorry at all. "But humanity must be contained. You breed too quickly. You adapt too well. You are dangerous to the natural order of the galaxy." "This is madness," shouted. "We have done nothing wrong." "That is precisely the problem," another alien voice said. "You have done nothing wrong yet, but we have studied your history, your wars, your conflicts, your refusal to accept defeat. We cannot allow such a species to grow powerful." The first weapons fired. Minu watched in horror as his flagship, the Soul's Pride, exploded in a ball of fire. 300 crew members died in an instant. People he had trained with, eaten with, laughed with. Gone. "Run!" Minu grabbed and pushed her toward an escape pod. Around them, other human diplomats were being gunned down by soldiers who had been hiding on the station all along. Captain tried to reach them from the observation deck, but energy barriers had sealed every section. He could only watch as his admiral fought desperately to save lives. Minu got into a pod. "Tell Earth what happened here," he ordered. "Tell them we were betrayed." "Come with me," she begged. "Someone has to buy you time." Minu sealed the pod and launched it before she could argue. He turned to face the soldiers approaching him. He did not run. He was an admiral of Earth's navy, and he would die like one. The pod carrying shot through space, dodging weapons fire. She screamed as she watched the massacre continue. Every human ship at the Council station was being destroyed. They had no chance. They had come in peace, and now they were being slaughtered. Across the galaxy, the attack happened everywhere at once. Earth's colonies on 12 different worlds came under assault. The alien fleets had planned this carefully. They had scattered humanity's military forces across space under the pretense of goodwill deployments. Now those forces were isolated, cut off, unable to help each other. On the colony world of New Beijing, families were dragged from their homes. On Titan Station, orbital defenses were overwhelmed in minutes. On Mars, the domed cities were breached, and alien soldiers poured in. Back on Earth, people watched in horror as the news reached them. Their children, their brothers, their sisters, dying light years away, and there was nothing they could do. The broadcast came next. It played on every human channel, every screen, every device. His face appeared, calm and composed. "People of Earth," he said, "do not resist. We do not wish to exterminate you. You will be relocated to designated reservation worlds where you can live peacefully under our protection. This is for the good of the galaxy. This is for your own good." But everyone knew the truth. This was not protection. This was elimination. Slow, careful, permanent elimination. Captain managed to escape the council station in a small scout ship. He was one of the few. As he jumped to, running for his life, he made a promise. This was not over. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. The message reached Earth within hours. Admiral Minu was dead. Ambassador was missing, presumed dead. Thousands of humans had been killed in the first wave. The colonies were falling. And the Galactic Council did nothing. They watched, they expressed concern, they called for peaceful negotiations, but they did nothing. Humanity was alone, betrayed, scattered, broken. But not dead, not yet. 6 months had passed since the attack. Earth had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The blue planet that once dreamed of peaceful exploration now lived under occupation. Ships hung in orbit like vultures. Their soldiers walked the streets of every major city. They had come with what they called minimal force, expecting humans to accept their fate quietly. They were wrong. Governor stood in the occupied presidential palace in Seoul, smiling politely at the commander who thought he controlled her. Her real name was Park, but the aliens simply called her Governor. They had chosen her because she seemed cooperative, reasonable, willing to accept the new order. They had no idea she was feeding information to the resistance every single day. "The relocation of the coastal populations is proceeding smoothly," she lied, signing documents the commander placed before her. In reality, those populations had vanished into the mountains, joining the fighters. Deep in those same mountains, Lieutenant crouched in a hidden bunker. Before the invasion, he had been a young officer with dreams of exploring distant stars. Now he was a guerrilla fighter, leading attacks against alien supply lines. "We hit another convoy last night," his second-in-command reported. "No human casualties. We took their weapons and disappeared before reinforcements arrived." Nodded. It was not much, but it was something. Every stolen weapon, every sabotaged supply truck, every dead alien soldier was a small victory. The thought these were random attacks, isolated incidents. They did not understand that every resistance cell across Earth was connected, coordinated, waiting. In the ruins beneath Seoul, where bombing had collapsed entire sections of the city, Doctor worked by the light of stolen power cells. She was a quantum physicist, one of the minds humanity had ever produced. The thought she had died in the initial attack, that mistake would cost them everything. Her laboratory was hidden 3 levels below ground, accessible only through collapsed subway tunnels. Here, she had gathered pieces of destroyed alien ships, studying their technology with hungry eyes. "Their FTL drives are impressive," she muttered to herself, taking apart an engine component. "But inefficient. They rely on stable jump points. We can do better." Her assistant, a young engineer named, looked up from his own work. "Do better. We barely understand how this works." "Then we learn faster," said simply. "They think we are primitive. That gives us freedom to think differently." Across the solar system, on the dark side of Pluto where the aliens rarely patrolled, Captain had built something remarkable. After escaping the massacre at the council station, he had not run home to Earth. Instead, he had gone to the refugee camps, to the scattered survivors of destroyed colonies, and he had given them purpose. Now thousands of humans lived in secret bases carved into ice and rock. They trained, they planned, they waited. Stood before a gathering of survivors, his voice steady. They think they know us. They studied our history, our wars, our violence. They think that makes us predictable. A woman in the crowd stood up. Her name was Sora, and she had lost her entire family when the aliens destroyed the Mars domes. What do we have that they do not? Desperation, answered. They fight to maintain order. We fight to survive. They follow rules of warfare that have kept the galaxy peaceful for 10,000 years. We will break every single one of those rules. Meanwhile, Ambassador had not died as everyone believed. Her damaged pod had been picked up by a human merchant ship in deep space. For months, she had been moving in secret, using old smuggler routes, visiting every scattered group of human survivors she could find. On a forgotten mining station, she met with the remains of Earth's military command. Admiral had survived the initial attack through sheer luck. His ship had been in a repair dock when the betrayal happened. Now he commanded a fleet of barely functional vessels, held together with spare parts and determination. We have 53 ships, told. Most of them are civilian vessels with weapons bolted on. We are not enough to win a straight fight. Then we do not fight straight, replied. She spread out a map of the galaxy on the table before them. They and their allies occupy Earth and 12 colony worlds. They control major trade routes. They have the Council's silent approval. So how do we beat them? Smiled, and it was not a kind smile. We do what humans have always done when faced with superior force. We adapt, we survive, we strike where they are weakest. Back on Earth, Governor received a coded message through channels so old and buried that they did not even know they existed. It was from 3 words only: prepare for sunrise. Destroyed the message immediately and smiled at the commander. Shall I order more cooperation announcements to help the population accept their new circumstances? Yes, the commander said, pleased. He truly believed humans were broken. He had no idea that beneath his feet, in every city, in every town, in every village, humans were preparing for war. Doctor made a breakthrough in her underground lab. She had finally cracked the secret of FTL technology and improved it. Her missiles would be faster, undetectable, and they could be launched from anywhere. She sent the plans through the Resistance network. Within weeks, hidden factories across Earth began production. They noticed nothing. They saw defeated workers going to their jobs, returning to their homes, living quiet lives. They did not see the same workers spending nights in secret facilities, building weapons that would change everything. Lieutenant received new orders. Stop sabotaging supply lines. Let the aliens think the Resistance was fatting. Make them comfortable. Make them careless. It was the hardest thing he had ever done, watching alien convoys pass without attacking. But he obeyed. Trust the plan. Wait for the signal. Captain trained his teams in tactics no military academy would ever teach. How to make every death count. How to use the enemy's own rules against them. How to make victory so expensive that surrender became cheaper. 18 months after the occupation began, everything was in place. Scattered across 40 star systems, hiding in asteroids and abandoned stations, disguised as civilian ships and cargo containers, humanity's revenge waited. They were confident. Earth was, the colonies were emptied. The human fleet was destroyed. They had won. They could not have been more wrong. Governor signed one final document, authorizing the relocation of the last free human settlement. The commander thanked her for her cooperation. She smiled and nodded. In 72 hours, she thought, you will learn what humans are truly capable of. The countdown had begun. The asteroid base had no official name. It existed only as a series of coordinates that changed every few weeks as it drifted through the outer reaches of an unnamed system. This was where Admiral had built his fleet back from nothing. He stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Fury, watching his officers prepare for what came next. They were tired, running on stale, recycled air and determination, but their eyes burned with something they had not expected to see in a defeated species: hope. "Status report," commanded. Commander stepped forward. She was young for her rank, promoted not because of years of service, but because she had proven herself in battle after battle. "All strike teams are in position, sir. We have assets in 217 locations across the galaxy. Doctor's missiles, loaded and ready. They still have no idea we can manufacture them." Nodded slowly. 18 months of hiding, 18 months of pretending to be broken, had all led to this moment. The thought they had crushed humanity. They were about to learn the truth. On Earth, Lieutenant gathered his fighters in the mountains one last time before the attack. They numbered in the thousands now, armed with stolen weapons and homemade explosives. Many of them were not soldiers. They were teachers, doctors, farmers, students. The invasion had turned them all into warriors. "Remember the plan," said quietly. "We hit every occupation force simultaneously. We do not stop until every alien soldier is off our planet or dead. No mercy, no hesitation. They came to our world. They killed our families. Tomorrow we take it back." A young fighter named raised her hand. She was only 17, but she had lost everyone she loved in the first days of occupation. "What if they surrender?" Met her eyes. "They did not give us that option. We will not give them one either." Deep beneath Seoul, Doctor ran final checks on her systems. The laboratory that had been her prison and workplace for 18 months would soon be abandoned. But first, she would send one last gift to their enemies. Her assistant was nervous. What if the calculations are wrong? What if the missiles miss their targets? "They will not miss," said with absolute certainty. "I have checked them 1,000 times. They built their empire on superior technology. We are about to show them that desperation breeds innovation better than comfort ever could." She activated the countdown sequence. In hidden silos across Earth, in smuggler ships drifting through space, in the cargo holds of vessels the aliens thought were harmless, her missiles came online. Silent, invisible, deadly. Engineer worked in a converted warehouse outside, making final adjustments to her drone swarms. The aliens had laughed when they Earth's military technology. Primitive, they called it. Outdated. Not worth studying. That dismissal would kill them. Drones were simple. Each one was barely more than a guidance system, a small explosive and basic propulsion. But she had built them by the millions, using every scrap factory and 3D printer that still functioned. They had sophisticated point defense systems designed to stop sophisticated weapons. They had nothing that could stop 10,000 simple targets coming from every direction at once. "Launch as soon as you see the first explosion," she told her team. "Do not wait for orders, just launch everything." Captain prepared his teams on the ice fields of Pluto. These were the volunteers who had accepted the hardest missions. Some would pilot ships loaded with explosives into stations. Others would board enemy vessels and detonate themselves to ensure the target was destroyed. Commander had asked him how he could order people to die. "I do not order them," had replied. "They volunteer. Every single one knows they probably will not come back, and every single one does it anyway because they want their deaths to matter." Now he stood before them one final time, men and women who had chosen to become weapons. "The galaxy thinks we are weak because we value individual life. They think our compassion makes us soft. Tomorrow, we show them that humans who choose to die are the most dangerous force in the universe." A man named stepped forward. He had been a teacher before the war. "Will this work, Captain? Will our sacrifice actually change anything? Yes, said simply, because we are not just attacking military targets. We are destroying everything they need to wage war. Their shipyards, their supply depots, their communication relays. We are cutting the head off the snake and burning the body. Ambassador moved through the shadows of a Galactic Council information hub. It had taken her months to get here, using fake identities and bribes. But now she stood in front of the main database, downloading every piece of information about military deployments. She also planted something else, a virus that would broadcast a message to every species in the galaxy at the exact moment the attack began. Evidence of the conspiracy, proof that they had planned this betrayal for years, records of other species they had eliminated the same way. The galaxy would watch, the galaxy would know, and the galaxy would understand that humanity was not the aggressor here. In orbit around a neutral world, met with ambassador collies of the species. They looked like tall, thin birds with intelligent eyes. They had been powerful once, until they had crushed them a century ago. You risk much by helping us, said. Collies made a sound like wind through feathers. We remember our own defeat. We remember being told it was for the good of the galaxy. We remember accepting our place and losing everything. When we heard humans were fighting back, we knew we had to help. They will punish you. Let them try. They grew soft from 100 years of easy victories. You have reminded the galaxy that some species refuse to die quietly. The final hours ticked away. Across 217 locations, humans checked their weapons and said their prayers. Some prayed to old gods. Some prayed to new ones. Some prayed to the memory of everyone they had lost. Governor sat in her office, reviewing reports she would never send. The commander had gone to sleep, confident that tomorrow would be the same as every day before, peaceful, controlled, orderly. She looked at the clock. 3 hours until sunrise. 3 hours until the galaxy learned what happened when you mistook human patience for acceptance. Admiral addressed his fleet one last time. They studied our history and saw only war and violence. They missed the important part. They did not see that humans have survived ice ages and plagues and extinction events. They did not understand that we are the species that refuses to quit. Today, we remind them why that matters. Doctor initiated the final countdown. Her missiles were ready. Her calculations were perfect. They would never see them coming. Lieutenant led his fighters down from the mountains. They moved in darkness, surrounding every occupation base, every checkpoint, every alien position. Captain's suicide teams boarded their ships. Engineers' drones powered up. Commander gave the signal to strike teams across the galaxy. Everything was ready. The trap was set. The prey had no idea they were surrounded. In the vastness of space, humanity held its breath. And then, at exactly 0600 Galactic Standard Time, the universe changed. The first missile struck a shipyard above their colony world of. The explosion lit up the night sky like a new sun. Before the aliens could react, 100 more missiles found their targets. Shipyards, supply depots, command stations, all vanishing in nuclear fire. The attack had begun. The Empire had stood for 3,000 years. It ended in a single morning. Doctor's missiles struck first, appearing from nowhere like vengeful ghosts. They had the best sensors in the galaxy, but they detected nothing until the warheads were already detonating. Shipyards that had built vessels for centuries vanished in blooms of fire. Supply stations exploded, scattering debris across entire star systems. On their colony world of, Admiral watched his orbital defense platform tear itself apart. How? He screamed into his communicator. How did they get missiles past our sensors? The answer came as 3 more explosions consumed his fleet. Humans had not gotten past their sensors. They had built something better than technology, something the arrogant aliens had never considered possible. On Earth, Lieutenant gave the signal. 10,000 resistance fighters surged from the mountains like a flood. They hit every occupation base simultaneously, appearing from tunnels and hidden positions they had never found. The alien commander in Seoul was eating breakfast when the building exploded. Steam came through the smoke, weapons firing. They tried to organize a defense, but they were scattered, confused, unprepared. They had grown lazy during the occupation, confident that humans were defeated. That confidence killed them. Governor dropped her mask of cooperation and picked up a weapon. She had been a soldier before the aliens forced her into a political role. Now she remembered what she truly was. Her guards, who the thought were loyal, turned on their occupiers without hesitation. "Take back our city," commanded. "Every street, every building, every inch." Across Earth, the story repeated. In Beijing, New York, Moscow, Lagos, Mumbai, Tokyo. Everywhere the aliens had planted their flags, humans tore them down. The fighting was brutal and close. No mercy, no quarter. They had come to Earth expecting to relocate a defeated population. Instead, they found themselves fighting for their lives against an enemy that would rather die than submit. In orbit above Earth, Engineer unleashed her drone swarms. Millions of simple, stupid, cheap weapons. The ships activated their point defense systems, sophisticated weapons designed to shoot down missiles and fighters. They destroyed thousands of drones, tens of thousands, but there were millions and they came from every direction at once. The first drone got through, then 10, then hundreds. They smashed into hulls, each carrying enough explosive to tear through armor. The great warships that had blockaded Earth began to break apart, their crews screaming as atmosphere vented into space. A captain managed to send one message before his ship died. "They are using primitive technology against us. How is this possible?" The answer was simple. Sophisticated defenses needed sophisticated targets. Against a swarm of simple weapons, they were useless. Admiral's fleet emerged from hiding across the galaxy. 53 ships against an empire. They should have been destroyed in minutes, but they did not fight like the expected. They did not line up for honorable battle. They ambushed. They hit and ran. They used asteroids for cover and debris fields for concealment. When cornered, they did something that horrified the aliens. They rammed. Human ships, loaded with explosives driven by volunteer crews, smashed into vessels at relativistic speeds. The resulting explosions destroyed both ships, but the humans had planned for this. They had not. "This is not war," a fleet commander protested over open channels. "This violates every rule of galactic warfare." Commander's voice came back, cold and clear. "You attacked during a peace ceremony. You murdered diplomats. You bombed civilian populations. Do not lecture us about rules." Her ship, a converted ore hauler with missiles strapped to its hull, fired everything it had at the command vessel. When the weapons were empty, she ordered full speed ahead. The crew of 17 men and women sang an old Earth song as they crashed into the enemy, turning both ships into a funeral pyre. Captain led the most daring raid of all. His team approached the Galactic Council station using forged credentials and a stolen transport. They docked without incident. Security waved them through. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, fighters had seized the council chambers. He stood before the assembled ambassadors, his weapon pointed at the ceiling, his voice broadcasting to the entire galaxy. "My name is Captain of Earth. 18 months ago, the Collective and their allies attacked my people without warning or provocation. They killed thousands. They occupied our worlds. And you did nothing." The council speaker tried to interrupt. "This is not the proper forum for." "Be quiet," said flatly. "You will listen now. Ambassador has already released the evidence. Every species in the galaxy can see the conspiracy. You all knew, you all watched. You all chose to do nothing because you were afraid." Outside the station, human ships took up positions. Not many, not enough to win a battle, but enough to make a point. enough to show that humanity was done asking for permission. Meanwhile, the faced its own nightmare. Their emperor sat in his palace, protected by orbital fortresses and fleet after fleet of warships. He had declared humans extinct. He had celebrated their defeat. Now he watched as human ships appeared at the edge of his system. They were not military vessels. They were mining ships, tugboats, cargo haulers, and they were pushing asteroids. "Destroy them," the emperor commanded. His fleets tried, but for every ship they destroyed, another appeared, and the asteroids kept coming, guided by dead man switches and automated systems. Some would miss, some would be destroyed, but only one had to get through. The emperor's personal dreadnought, the Pride of, launched to intercept the threat personally. It was the largest ship in his fleet, armed with weapons that could destroy planets. Surely it could handle a few human terrorists. Commanders, a young officer named, commanded the lead asteroid tug. She had volunteered for this mission knowing she would not return. Her ship was old, barely holding together, but it had enough fuel to complete one final burn. The dreadnought's weapons tore her escorts apart. Her shields failed. Her hull breached, but she kept the engines burning. The asteroid, 3 kilometers of solid rock and ice, slammed into the Pride of at 20 kilometers per second. The emperor died believing humans would never dare attack him directly. His entire bloodline died with him, along with 10,000 crew members. The dreadnought broke into pieces, its reactor breaching, its weapons magazines exploding. The message was clear. Humanity would not stop. Humanity would not negotiate. Humanity would burn everything they had built until they surrendered or until both species were extinct. Within 48 hours, the military was shattered. Their shipyards were destroyed. Their supply lines were cut. Their emperor was dead. Their allies, seeing which way the wind blew, abandoned them completely. On Earth, the last holdout surrendered in Beijing. Lieutenant accepted their surrender and then shot their commander anyway. "You wanted to relocate us peacefully," he said to the dying alien. "We are relocating you to graves." The fighting ended not because humanity ran out of enemies, but because the enemies ran out of will to fight. The collective, mighty empire that had ruled a dozen systems broke. Their government collapsed. Their species retreated to there and begged for peace. Ambassador stood on the bridge of Admiral's flagship looking at the reports flowing in. Casualties were heavy, entire ships lost, thousands dead, but they had won. "The council is requesting a meeting," an officer reported. Smiled grimly. "Tell them we will meet on our terms this time. Tell them we are coming to the council station. And tell them humanity is not asking for a seat anymore. We are taking one." Admiral gave the order. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, set course for the council station. Behind them, Earth burned with liberation fires. Ahead of them, a galaxy that had ignored their screams now waited in fear. The age of mercy was over. The age of human power had begun. And the galaxy would never forget the price of betraying Earth. The Galactic Council Chamber had hosted debates for 10,000 years. It had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, but it had never seen anything like this. Human warships surrounded the station in a perfect sphere. Not hundreds, only 53. But every alien present knew those 53 ships had destroyed the military in less than 2 days. Numbers did not matter when your enemy refused to follow any rules. Ambassador walked into the chamber with Admiral at her side. No guards, no ceremony, just 2 humans who represented a species that would not be ignored anymore. Every eye in the room followed them. Some looked afraid, others looked angry, none looked dismissive. The council speaker floated in its energy form, trying to maintain some dignity. "Ambassador, this breach of protocol is—" "Be quiet," said simply. The speaker actually fell silent. That had never happened before. Walked to the center of the chamber. Holographic displays activated around her, showing images that made several ambassadors look away. The massacre at the peace ceremony, the bombing of human colonies, secret communications between thee and their allies, planning humanity's elimination years in advance. You all knew, said quietly, her voice carried in the silent chamber. The collective told you they planned to contain humanity. You voted to allow it. You watched as they killed our people. You watched as they occupied our world. And you did nothing. The ambassador tried to speak. We were assured it would be peaceful, that humans would be relocated, not harmed. And you believed them, or did you simply not care? Turned to face the directly. Your species once voted to support our elevation. Then you voted to approve our destruction. Which vote was the lie? No answer came. Continued. The collective claimed we were too dangerous to be allowed to grow. They said we bred too fast, adapted too well, fought too fiercely. They were right about all of that. And now you understand what happens when you try to cage a dangerous animal instead of leaving it alone. The chamber doors opened. Governor walked in, still wearing her combat gear from the liberation of Seoul. Behind her came lieutenant, engineer, and doctor. These were not diplomats. These were the people who had fought and bled and won. Captain remained outside with his team, holding the station's security systems. No one was leaving until humanity was finished speaking. Admiral stepped forward. The collective is broken, their emperor is dead, their fleets are destroyed, their shipyards are rubble. What remains of their government has retreated to there. We could finish them, wipe them out completely. They certainly plan to do the same to us. Silence. But we will not, continued. Not because we are merciful, we are not. We have proven that. We will not exterminate them because we want them to remember. We want every child to grow up hearing the story of how their mighty empire attacked Earth and was destroyed in 2 days. We want them to be an example. Doctor activated another holographic display. This one showed schematics of weapons, missiles that could strike anywhere without warning, drones that could overwhelm any defense, ships designed for ramming attacks, technology that combined human innovation with stolen alien designs. We adapted your technology, said. Made it better, made it meaner, made it fit for war instead of peacekeeping. Every species here has scientists who said humans were too primitive to understand advanced physics. Those scientists were wrong. We understood it just fine. We simply made it practical. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. Humanity had not just won through luck or desperation. They had out-innovated species that had thousands of years of technological advantage. Spoke again. The collective and their allies participated in the attack on Earth. We have evidence. We have confessions from captured officers. We have their own planning documents. They will face justice. Not your justice. Ours. The Council has jurisdiction over, the speaker began. The Council has nothing, interrupted. You had jurisdiction over preventing genocide. You failed. We no longer recognize your authority over human affairs. Ambassador Collies of the Stood, the bird-like alien, looked around the chamber. I support humanity's position. They did this to my people a century ago. We accepted the Council's justice. The Council did nothing. They faced no consequences. We were forced to accept our diminished status. I say enough. Let Earth show us what real justice looks like. Other ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. They had just broken decades of silence. Suddenly, the conspiracy looked less like an isolated incident and more like a pattern. Placed a data chip on the central podium. This contains evidence of 17 other species that have peacefully relocated over the past 3 centuries. The Council approved every single case. Some of those species no longer exist. We are simply the first ones who fought back hard enough to win. The chamber erupted in noise. Ambassadors shouting denials, accusations, demands for investigations. Through it all, the humans stood silent and unmoved. Finally, the speaker managed to restore order. What does Earth want? 3 things, said. She held up one finger. First, full council membership with veto power over any decision that affects humanity. No more junior status. No more probationary period. We are equals now or we are enemies. She held up a second finger. Second, the collective will be dismantled. Their territory will be divided among species they have harmed. Their leaders will stand trial for genocide. The trial will be held on Earth under human law. She held up a third finger. Third, humanity will maintain a permanent military presence at this station and throughout Council space. We will be the ones who ensure no species ever suffers what we suffered. You failed to protect us. You will not fail anyone else while we are watching. The demands were outrageous, unprecedented, impossible to accept under normal circumstances. But these were not normal circumstances. The vote took 3 hours. Species argued, negotiated, threatened. But in the end, they voted. They voted because 53 human warships surrounded the station. They voted because humanity had proven they would destroy everything rather than submit. They voted because they were afraid. The final tally showed unanimous approval. Only the representative abstained, and only because the collective no longer had a functional government to give him instructions. Accepted the results without celebration. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. We know some of you are already planning ways to limit our power, to contain us through politics instead of force. I want to be very clear about something. She looked directly at the council speaker. We did not win because we had better technology or more ships. We won because we were willing to do things you found unthinkable. We won because when faced with extinction, we chose to make our death so expensive that surrender became cheaper. Remember that. Remember that every time you think about crossing humanity. The humans left the chamber. Behind them, aliens sat in stunned silence. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. A species that joined the council 15 years ago as junior members now sat at the head of the table. On Earth, Lieutenant stood at a memorial to the fallen. She was Minyu's daughter, though she rarely spoke about her father. She had been serving on a distant ship when he died at the council station. Now she commanded that same ship, renamed the Admiral Minyu in his honor. She lit a flame at the memorial, one of thousands being lit across Earth. Each flame represented someone who died in the attack or the liberation. Thousands of flames, thousands of lives, but not millions, not billions, because humans had fought back. Governor stood beside her. Do you think we did the right thing? Considered the question. We survived, that is enough. But at what cost? We became as ruthless as them. No, said firmly. We became what we needed to be. They chose to attack during a peace ceremony. They chose to bomb civilians. They chose to try to eliminate us. We simply chose to live. Everything that followed was their fault, not ours. Across the galaxy, the message spread. Earth had taken its seat at the council. Earth had humbled an empire. Earth had proven that humanity was not to be trifled with. Some species sent congratulations. Others sent warnings. The sent thanks, grateful that someone had finally held the accountable. In his office, Admiral read reports on the reconstruction. Earth had won, but the victory was expensive. Cities were damaged. Ships were lost. Thousands were dead. It would take years to rebuild. But they would rebuild, because that was what humans did. They survived, they adapted, they persisted. Ambassador gave one final broadcast to Earth and all human colonies. We came to the stars in peace. We offered friendship. We were betrayed, but we did not break. The galaxy has learned what happens when you mistake our kindness for weakness. Let this be a lesson that echoes for 10,000 years. Humanity will not be defeated. Humanity will not submit. Humanity will not forget. The broadcast ended. The war was over, but the age of human power had just begun. And somewhere in the ruins of the empire, survivors told their children the story of the species that refused to die, the story of Earth's merciless revenge. a warning that would be passed down through generations. Never, ever underestimate humanity again.